Go.
We are live, the Hunchtime podcast with Mr. Lunchtime here. How are you doing, Mr. Lunchtime?
Not too bad, Biggie, and yourself?
Wonderful. It's great to see you. I know
And
people
you?
are probably thinking, two white guys in their 30s starting a podcast, thinking people want to hear what they have to say, but we're going to give it a go anyway, because such are the
Why
times.
not?
This has come about just with the success of www.hunchtime.com, our tipping site, where just in the last few weeks the support has been fantastic, and we really, really appreciate everybody. Give us your thoughts and feedback on anything you hear in the podcast, or when our bets come in or when they don't. If you think we're wrong, if you think we're right, give us a shout on Instagram or Twitter. Mr. Lunchtime, we're going to start with rugby today. What did you make of Ireland last weekend?
Thought they were good, Biggie, played well from the off, opened up the big lead. They were poor enough closing out the game. I thought they played well. Again, a few stupid things like this box kicking, like in the 79th minute, and you see them giving the ball back to Scotland. You're like, oh my God, not again. Why are they doing this? But it paid off in the end. What were your own thoughts?
And they're giving possession back. We've seen that a good few times in this tournament. Actually, we saw Scotland do it as well against Wales.
Yeah, I don't understand it personally, but well, it worked out in the end. But I think
the highlight of that game was Hamish Watson's mullet. That was glorious. I had my girlfriend and I had we both had the drawback at 22-1. I got the little parlay in that if Johnny Sexton missed that kick to make it a draw, I'd get to grow my mullet back. I had a glorious mullet when I was 16. The bottom of it was dyed blonde as well. It was disgusting. But our relationship was on the line with Johnny Sexton's kick. But Johnny came good, as he's done before.
He did. Yeah, it was a brilliant kick. Judged it just perfectly inside the left-hand post.
Yeah, and this weekend England come to town. Usually it's St. Paddy's Day game. Ireland, England. It's like it's all action. This weekend, I really don't know. I think this could be the end of Farrell's tenure if Ireland get it, especially if they get a hiding. Like Matt Williams and stuff was speaking in post-match analysis, saying that Ireland's offloading game, it's not Ireland's fault. This has to be done from when you're a kid, which is just utter bollocks. We heard that from George Hook and Brent Pope 10 years ago, that it has to be done in like when you're a kid. Do you remember when Pat Lam came to Connacht? How many offloads would they generate in a game? 1 year later, what was it like? And Farrell's 2 years into his tenure now. And I know it's not all about offloading, but it is about having sort of putting together an attacking plan, an attacking platform that teams can work from. And it seems to be we're kind of in the middle of what Farrell wants to do, and there's still a hangover from the Joe Schmidt Moneyball style of rugby.
Well, I think that's because there's still too many players there from the Joe Schmidt era that probably need to move on. You see CJ Standard during the week, he's only 30 and he's retiring. There's a few more players who should probably decide that that's the best way forward. If you're planning for a World Cup, what's the point in having a squad that's all in their in their early 30s playing? You're not going to win a World Cup like that. You're never going to progress past the quarterfinal with the same bunch of players that have failed miserably 3 times now.
I just think it's we shouldn't be talking about Farrell has had time, but we shouldn't be talking about this England game as do or die for Farrell's career. We should be talking about this England game as like a chance to blood 3 or 4 new players, because the result
100%.
shouldn't be the focus, as it always is. But we've made it about Farrell's chance of maintaining his Ireland job, and it shouldn't be. It should be all World Cup prep from here on out.
I think that win last week will keep his job.
Really?
I do. I think the way the IRFU work, I think that has kept his job. In fairness to them, as poor as they have been, they were very unlucky against Wales when O'Mahony was sent off in the first half. They went toe-to-toe with Wales for the next 60 minutes, and only for Billy Burns at the end, they would have had a line out to try and maul over from 5 metres to sneak the game even that day.
You know what was the best thing that came from that game? I don't give a shit about losing to Wales that day. what was the best thing is that Peter O'Mahony got suspended. In comes Connors and Byrne moves
Connors.
to 6. Byrne is now
Yeah.
our best back rower, but that's
Yeah.
where he should be playing. He's not a second, like he's a decent second row, but he's world class when he's in the back row. That's where he was at Clonettley for years. He was unbelievable. And now Connors has been, well, for me, he's been the player of the tournament with Byrne.
I was just going to say on Connors, like, this is exactly what we keep harping on about, is you have to give players a chance. And like, Connors wouldn't have got his chance if O'Mahony didn't get sent off in that game.
Yeah.
Like,
now Standard's retirement might lead to, Quayle Doris, who's going to be, he possibly our 8 in World Cup time. So, I think it's all good. Standard retiring. He's been really, really good. He's been a brilliant servant for Munster and Ireland. And I think it's fair enough. It's time to step down. He's moving down to his farm in George, living his life, which sounds lovely. But we'll transition over to golf here, as broadly and awkwardly as a 40-year-old at a disco. But last weekend, the players, how did the Hunchtime golf tip go?
Well, the Hunchtime golf tips were just simply an on-runner, with all 3 missing the cut. Most of the top players literally did not turn up. You had like our picks, Cantley, Molinari, and Webb Simpson all missing the cut. You also have players then like Rory, Tony Finau, Xander, like top players, and just none of them seemed to get it going last weekend with the tough conditions. We had a couple of good performances, like Justin Thomas on Sunday. Well, his last 36 holes were just simply outstanding.
Yeah.
He gained nearly 12 shots on the field, tee to green, on his last 36 holes, which is unbelievable. It's actually the most since records began.
Holy shit.
Well, since they started tracking in 2004. So just tells you how well he played. Like, his back 9, he bogeyed, I think it was 8 on Sunday, and he went 3 shots behind, and he took 5 shots out of the field of the next 4 holes with an eagle and 4 birdies, and just tells you what a quality player he is.
He's world class. It's I think the whole world was rooting for Westwood avec his woman. I don't know, like, having her on the bag seems to have just changed him. He's more relaxed. You see him even when he bogeys, they have a little laugh together to go on to the next one. But he's come into form at a great time for a Ryder Cup pick.
Oh, he has, yeah, and he needed to too. Just like our own tip this week, Shane Lowry just showed a bit of form last week as well. The 2 of them have been struggling to make the Ryder Cup team. They'd be kind of relying on their mate, Pádraig Harrington, the captain, to give them a friend's pick, we should say. I'm sure he's had a word with them to try and take that out of his hands, and I expect the 2 of them to be prominent in the next few weeks and months ahead anyways.
And who else had you your eye on for the Honda Classic this week?
Well, the first guy I had my eye on was Gary Woodland, but he has the virus now, so he had to pull out. I thought, on all his form over the last few years, I know he struggled recently, but he was the best player in the field.
Yeah.
Like, he's a major winner. He has a good record around the Honda Classic course. I felt he was a great pick. He was 33-1, but he pulled out on Tuesday afternoon. So then went through the past few years, and one guy just stood out to me, and that was Brendan Steele.
Yeah.
He was 4th last year after having the lead going into the final round. He has certain courses he plays well at, and this is one of them. He's never been, the last 6 years, he's never been lower than 14th in the tournament, and the field isn't as strong this year.
No.
He's been in decent form recently as well. He has 6 straight cuts made. Finished 2nd earlier in the year. He's been ticking along nicely. I think he could have a good week this week, and at 40-1, I think he'll be thereabouts come Sunday.
Yeah, for your 7 places, definitely like 40-1 is good value. What's Lowry at the moment? Because I've seen him tipped by other golfing tipsters.
He is.
Quite readily.
He's actually. We got him at 20. He was 28-1 on Tuesday, and he's now 20-1. So there's a lot of money pouring in from him. And for a change, it's not just in Ireland. It seems to be everywhere. Usually with Lowry, you'd see the money coming in Ireland, but he'd be bigger price with some of the bookmakers that aren't based in Ireland, but he
I know you back with an Irish bookie at the moment, and I back with an English bookie, and it's very funny seeing how McElroy and and Lowry are bet up in Ireland every single week.
yeah, they really are, and like the value is going to somewhere else. Simple as that.
Let's pop over to soccer for the week, because we want to make this, as concise as possible for people to give a bit of betting advice for the weekend. But before we go on to our sort of soccer tips and picks, we'll review last week. Last week was our first losing week. Out of, I think we're 12 live.
12 weeks
so
running now.
First
Yeah.
time we've only got 1 out of 4 with our bet of the week letting us down Sevilla and Betis as well in El Grand Derby, or La Grand Derby. Don't speak Spanish. Either way, it let us down.
Yeah.
But yeah, any thoughts on our bets last week? Like, were you still happy with the process?
The process was spot on. We had all the stats to back it up. Derby games can take on a life of their own though, and Sevilla kind of just, once they scored, they shut up shop. And Betis just failed to break them down. And they had plenty of chances, just couldn't find that equaliser. Our old friend,
a dozen games before that as well,
They had, and our old friend Joaquin had saved us twice. Actually, he's come good for us twice with 2 late goals so far for Betis. But it wasn't to be. They're 2 old favourites at Hunchtime. They've done us good turn plenty of times. So we won't hold it against them just yet.
Yeah, and I thought with Sevilla took a massive dip in recent form, just with the distraction of Dortmund in the Champions League. But now that that's gone, they seem to be back to their old ways, where they were the form team across the top European leagues in terms of winning to nil. They'd won 8 times to nil before they played Dortmund, and now they've beaten Betis last weekend 1-0, and they play a Lecce tonight. Sevilla to win to nil, you're getting better to the even money. So you never know. We're not tipping it up, but definitely keep an eye out. But just on Hunchtime in general, we're not experts. Like the reason we set this up was because the other tipping sites that we'd looked at in the past, well, for the past number of years, they're all associated with the bookmakers. So it's actually in their best interests to give you betting advice. And like quite often, with like some of the analysis is poor, you wouldn't touch the bets. That part is okay, but just the dishonesty of it, where they might tip up 19 picks a day, and then they only show their winners, So like we try to be honest with our winners and losers. Until we have a new bet, we'll leave our old analysis up on site. And yeah, we'll just be your Sherpas of gambling. But again, if you're climbing up a hill with a Sherpa and he fucks himself off the hill, you probably shouldn't follow him. Use your own initiative is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, have a look. If our odds, if our tips match your tips, then by all means, take our advice on board. But it's just like last night with Atalanta and Real Madrid in the Champions League. I wrote up Atalanta yesterday because they were 5-1, went into 9-2. Atalanta and both teams to score. A team that has 84 goals already this year. They were only outscored in the last 2 years by Bayern Munich and Manchester City. And they haven't a tenth of the spending power. But they didn't show up last night. But
no, they didn't.
The price went into almost 3-1 before the game started. So it showed we were like the analysis was it was going in the right direction, but underestimated that Madrid team, Mr. Lunchtime.
Yeah, they have a lot of experience in the team. In fairness to Madrid, like personally, I do think they're a sitting duck for one of the bigger teams in the next round. Now Ramos makes a massive difference back in the heart of the defence, but still, like they're relying on the old guard of Ramos, Varane, Casemiro, who didn't play last night, Modric, who's 35, Toni Kroos. Like these have been part of the team, the great Madrid team over the last 8 or 9 years that had Ronaldo and Bale and Benzema. Just on Benzema, I think he's a very underrated player. He's never talked about in the top strikers, but his goal last night brought him to be the 5th player to score 70 Champions League goals. And I remember back in the day, as you probably do, Biggie, when Raul reached the magical 70 back then, it was a massive thing.
Unheard of, I remember. Yeah, the great Raul.
and like only Messi. It took like it's taken Benzema 126 games to reach that achievement, and like at the same time, it took Messi 90, Lewandowski 93, Ronaldo 106, and Raul 139. So he's in good company there.
He is, yeah. That's like in the hallowed halls there of football, and he really he's really not spoken about. And Real Madrid noticed when he was injured this year. Like his presence back there is amazing. He's a brilliant finisher. His position in his class, his hold up play is very good as well. It's really underrated. I just think throughout his career he's been overshadowed by like the other Galacticos that were there. But on last night's game, as much as Atalanta didn't turn up, like they were like uncharacteristically kind of subdued last night, and it took until they were 2-0 down for them to wake up. But I thought Modric controlled the game from that kind of Pirlo role, that kind of Tecarista role where you play just in front of the back four, take the ball off them, and totally control the pace of the game. And even though he's in probably his last year at Madrid, my God, he's still unbelievable.
He is. Do you remember the day we both were I think it was Euro 2012 when we saw Croatia play Ireland, and I remember you turning around to me. No, we had a few drinks taken at the time, and I remember you saying to me, I'd never seen a player dictate a game the way he dictated that game.
That game, since that game, Modric has been my favourite footballer in the world. That day
Yeah.
blew my mind. It was like, when you're a kid and you go to, you're at your uncle's or something in the summer, you're over and all the cousins are playing soccer, and a kind of uncle who has a bit of football about him comes in half drunk and is keeping the ball away from all the rest of the kids. That's what Modric reminded me of in Euro 2012. He was just head and shoulders above anybody on the pitch.
Oh, he was, as you said, he was like an adult playing with a bunch of children. So,
Yeah.
he was a different level altogether.
It was amazing. A bit of fun before we finish. Rumours of Roy Keane and Micah Richards taking the Celtic job as coach and assistant coach respectively. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I will say that it would be some crack in the build-up. It would be a dream for Sky next year to have Roy Keane against Steven Gerrard in a build-up to an Old Firm game. Okay. Can you imagine the hype? Now, the other side of that is I can see Gerrard walking away from Rangers at the end of the season.
Really?
Yeah, he went up there to stop the 10. He's achieved that. What more really can he achieve? What happens if the Celtic buy a few players next season? I know they're 20 points behind, but they're not. That's no reflection really of where they are.
How quickly Rangers changed to bridge that gap.
Yeah, like it was the opposite way around last year.
Yeah.
And like the Rangers fans were calling for Stevie's head last year. But like Celtic just stayed still, didn't progress, left Neil Lennon in charge, and it's come home to roost now this season.
Do you think Roy Keane, like he's sort of what he did with Sunderland at the start of his career, where he came in, Sunderland lost their first 5. This is not fact check, so could easily be wrong.
6, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and then he went on to absolutely annihilate the rest of the championship and win the championship comfortably by the end of it.
Yeah.
And I think that was more around his aura and his fear that he sort of instilled in the players, and I think that might be gone. But do you think he could bring that back if he came up to Celtic?
I don't. I think football has moved on. That's 12 years ago now. Off the top of my head, maybe it's a bit less, but it's about 12 years ago. I think football has really moved on since then. Like I saw a tweet, I just posted the name into Twitter last night, and like someone had tweeted that he'll bring discipline and hunger and respect to the dressing room. But like, that's not what it's about these days. Like, all players have that anyways. Like, will he bring, like, it's more to do with like tactical analysis and all that. Like, all his time at Sky, and I love watching him at Sky, and the sound bites are unbelievable, and he's unbelievable to watch. But have you ever seen him actually analyse a game and tell you, oh, he's done this, he's doing this, what's he doing wrong? I've never seen that. He just goes on the attack against the player. Now, I love watching it, but if you were a player, are you going to listen to that?
I think that's such a good shout, Lunchtime, because I think that day of management is gone, and I don't think Roy Keane has that analytical mind that, like, you see it in the players we played against playing football and hurling and stuff. The difference between, like, you think that everybody knows about the game or everybody looks at the game the same way, but there's some players that look at it analytically and some players just play. And it doesn't make you a better player being more analytical, thinking about tactics and stuff. Like, But I digress. I think the days of that sort of Roy Keane management style is gone, where you're a manager of a team, you're hyping them up, you're putting the pressure on them to be disciplined and focused. And I think discipline, focus, and respect are the least relevant parts of management at the moment. As you said, like the top managers in the league now, I'm thinking Brendan Rodgers. If he's at a team for 6 months, it's a Brendan Rodgers team. They're playing the ball out from the back. Everybody's improved on the ball. They're like,
Yeah,
look what he's done with. Like Leicester are consistently a top four side now, or top four
Challenger.
finish. But since he came in, and the other top managers in the league are the same. They're tactically astute managers who introduce a system into a team. You're seeing the same at Tuchel at Chelsea. Just as soon as Lampard was gone, it took him. It was pretty much instantaneous, wasn't it? Suddenly Chelsea don't concede anymore.
They've only conceded 2 goals since he came in.
Yeah,
and this is with players that Lampard had deemed weren't good enough in Christensen and Rudiger, Alonso. Yeah, it's a pretty amazing job he's doing there with all these players that just were deemed not good enough. And if Lampard was still there, they'd be all sitting on the bench and they'd be going out selling them in the summer and replacing them with 3 new defenders.
Yeah, and Lampard will be thinking of a new guy to bitch about after every game, to make up for his massive lack in maybe it's managerial experience. I don't think it is. I think if you, it's back to my point of view. If you look at a Klopp team, straight away after a couple of weeks, you're watching a Jurgen Klopp team. It's a massively high press. The energy is huge. Like a Bielsa team all of these managers, Bielsa, Klopp, Gasperini with Atalanta, they instill just that desire anyway in their players, and that hunger and that passion and that discipline just because of the person they are. And then on top of that, they introduce a system or tactics that the players have to buy into. And if they buy in, it works. Roy Keane, I don't think he has the ability to do that.
No, he has. I will say, though, he has mellowed out a bit in the last few years. You see him on Sky. He's a lot calmer than he used to be. And he might work with Richards with him. I don't know. Richards might be the bit of crack at the side.
Micah's a good foil for him, though.
He is. I think it'd be a massive gamble by Celtic, though, to take a chance on him. A massive gamble. They might get that instant. He might get a bit of respect. I don't know. But I think it's a massive gamble to take a chance on him. There's a lot of
I think you would get that bounce straight away. Just because of the hype. The players would hear the hype in the media and they'd be like, but over time, I think long term, also Roy Keane, just because of his personality, maybe he has mellowed. He's not able to stay with a project long term. There will be something as small as a pitch in fucking Saipan that he's not happy with, and he's prepared to throw the baby out with the bathwater with everything else. So if Celtic want a little short term bump, Richards and Keane will be brilliant fun,
It will, yeah. And the crowd, in fairness, the crowd back now. Hopefully next season, crowds will be back, and a crowd at Celtic Park with Roy Keane at the helm could be serious atmosphere. It'd definitely be something you'd be looking at to go and see. Anyways, I'd say
I'm rooting for it 100%. Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard, full crowd at Ibrox. Oh my god!
It'd be something to look forward to, wouldn't it?
That's what I massively missed in the Ireland-Scotland game. Was the crowd. I have gotten used to it in lockdown, but I just felt there was something missing from that game, from old Ireland-Scotland games. It was just dead, a little dead, especially in the first half. Yeah,
I've been finding that a lot recently. At the start, I didn't really mind it. I was just happy to see everything back after the break last year. It's kind of come to the stage now where you miss the crowds. You see it at the golf now, the crowds are back. I know they've only small crowds, but there's a bit of an atmosphere. I think it makes a massive difference.
It makes an absolutely huge difference. It was it's one of those kind of intangibles in sport that you can't put your finger on why it makes so much more of a difference and who it affects and who it doesn't. But just for Ireland-Scotland last week, there wasn't that that extra bit of bite, the extra bit of passion. It just seemed really seemed like a friendly game.
It's exactly, that's the best way to sum it up. And a lot I've watched a lot of soccer recently, and I'm beginning to find a lot of games so boring now.
Yeah.
Um, you just, I can't wait for crowds to come back. There's talk of the Euros being moved to London in the summer, since most of England will be vaccinated and 20,000 people attending. That would be something that everyone would be looking forward to, I think.
That'd be absolutely brilliant. And we didn't get a chance. I had my Hunchtime article written to back
You
Portugal
did.
at 14-1 for the Euros. And what have they gone into?
I think they're nines now.
Oh, yeah.
They're
At
still a good bet
14s,
at nines.
I'm still taking them at nines, 100%,
Yeah,
but I'm not writing it on Hunchtime because at 14, they were brilliant value. I
they
really,
were,
really
yeah.
loved them at 14s. But I think everybody copped onto them around the same time that a team with Neto, Ronaldo, um, oh God,
Jota, João
Bernardo
Felix,
Silva,
Bruno, Diaz, Cancelo. They
Pepe at
just
the back playing the football of his life for
Pepe,
Porto.
yeah,
Well,
Fabio Contrao as well. They just have an unbelievable team,
yeah, Rafael Guerrero for Dortmund.
and
Um,
they're also the holders, and they also won the Nations League. So they've two back-to-back tournaments won. So like, they're
yeah,
very, very
I can't believe they were seventh or eighth favorite. It just really didn't.
yeah,
I don't know why they were such an unattractive team for punters. Well, actually, I do know why. It's because England were favorites and England were sucking all the money out of the market. Um,
yeah.
all those English fans with dreams of
Football coming
66.
home.
Yeah, but no, I think I think this is the strongest Euros I've ever seen in terms of that there are maybe 7 or 8 absolutely excellent teams in France, Belgium, England, Italy are coming into fantastic form. If you want an outsider bet, about 18-1, they've been brilliant
There,
in the last 2 years.
Holland as well.
Holland, yeah, Virgil van Dijk back hopefully.
Yeah, and they have a striker now as well, and the big man. I think it's Wolfsburg he plays for, isn't it?
Wout Weghorst,
Yeah, that's the man, the big
yeah,
man.
big Wout playing up front. They have Daniel Milan as well if they want a speedier attacking option. And then you have
They
like
do
Spain are going under the radar, and they've really
big time.
they've been taken along lovely in the last couple of years. The one team I wouldn't bet is England. Like with
No,
those options, like I think it's England, France, the top of the market at the moment, but definitely look for value lower down the list. You want to be looking at your each ways with Portugal, maybe Italy. They'd be the two that would stand out to me. Germany, I just think Joachim Löw is the worst international coach to have managed to keep his job for more than a decade. It's phenomenal how poorly he's done, but I don't like. I can't write out Germany in a championship
that's
either.
the old saying, Biggie.
Yeah,
Never write off the Germans.
never do. Are you happy enough with that? The first Hunchtime podcast.
I am. I'd say one more thing on the
Go
Celtic
ahead.
thing. A shout for who would be a good manager for them is Chris Wilder.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, like the job he done at Sheffield was amazing with what he had to work with, and I just can't believe that they've sacked him. When he took them over, they were languishing in League One.
Yeah,
He took them over following season. They won 100 points in League One, which is a hard thing to do when you're playing Tuesday, Saturday a whole season.
yeah.
Brought them up to the Championship, got promoted ahead of Bielsa's Leeds. Finished 9th in the Premiership last year. The highest the club has ever achieved. With no, alright, he had a bit of money this summer, that was wasted, but I think that was more director of football buying players than him.
Your Rian Brewsters, which was just
Yeah,
not
they
fucking
don't strike me
sensible.
as he never really played him. It doesn't strike me as a Chris Wilder signing.
No.
He always had good workhorses and your McGoldricks and your Billy Sharps and these sort of lads.
Yeah.
Um,
But you can see how
and
good Chris Wilder is because, as soon as he came to Sheffield, he changed it to wing backs, three proper centre halves at the back, and your strikers running all over the pitch, working like dogs, interchangeable between a couple of different strikers. And he's a phenomenal coach. What he did was amazing, and everybody's favorite team last year.
100%, yeah, 100%. And they've replaced him with a man who I know well as a Leeds fan, Paul Heckingbottom, who is, in my opinion, the worst coach Leeds have ever had. He was the manager of Leeds just before Bielsa took over. And he literally had a spine of a team in Stuart Dallas, Calvin Phillips, Lou Galen, Cooper, all these sort of players, Alioski, Click, who are all Premier League players now. and like he won 4 games in charge of them. And if they think that man is going to get them promoted next year, I'd say if they leave him in charge, they'll be more likely to be relegated from the championship than promoted with him in charge. That's a shout now for all Hunchtime viewers. Sheffield United to be relegated. Sheffield United to be relegated to the League One next season if they leave Paul Heckingbottom in charge. That's a shout.
They were a bet to be relegated. Sad as it was, they were a bet to be relegated
They were, yeah.
this year, just because last year, if your keeper is your player of the year, they had so many. They were so low scoring, and traditionally it's very, very hard for low scoring teams when they come into the Premier League. After they might get that jump, and that little bit added, a little bit of luck, should we say, mixed with determination in the first year. But if you're a low scoring team that comes into the league, the second and third year get really, really hard, because if you get the luck in your 1-0s, your 2-1s, your late goals in the first year, like what happened to Sheffield, more likely than not, statistically, the variance is going to come back the other way, and those 1-0 wins turn into 0-alls, or like we saw this year, 2-1s and late losses.
There's actually a very good article on that, Biggie, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, unfortunately. He's the Norwich manager. I think his name is Daniel Farke, is it?
Yeah.
But he made a very good point. Like, Norwich backed him last year, even though they were in a similar situation this time last year to Sheffield, but they backed him.
Yeah.
And now they're literally running away with the championship. They've won their last 10 games and they've the league wrapped up. But he made a good point, and he said that teams that come up as defensive minded are better equipped in the first season they come up, because they don't have to work on the defense. They're set. They know what they're going to do. They'll be able to sneak a goal. Whereas a team who come up like Norwich, Leeds, and they're attack minded, if they can stay up, they have a better long-term chance to come up of staying in the league, because they'll always be improving their players, and they're more inclined to attack anyways. And with better players, they'll get better and better. Bournemouth were a good example of that. They came up as an attack-minded team that stayed up for about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Or they've all eventually went to pot last year, but they'd awful luck with injuries. They had good players, but they'd awful luck with injuries.
That was very eloquently put. Oh, apologies. That was very eloquently put. I'm glad you saved my point there. But so, like, just to summarize, it's way easier to fix the defense than put a system in place to make you a good attacking team.
It is, yeah. But long term, if you have a good attacking team, if you can survive that first year or two, you're more likely to get a decade in the league than you are as a defensive team. You see it with the defensive teams. I know Burnley go against that mould, but like they just have an exceptional manager. But you've seen it over the years with defensive teams. They've had one good season, then they go down. Sunderland under Roy Keane were a good example. There's been plenty of them. Watford, there's plenty of them teams.
What, West Brom this season?
West Brom, another one of them. They're up a yo-yo team. No matter what manager they have, they're always defensive. There's just so many teams like that over the years. They survive the first season, then they go down the second.
And if Sheffield wanted that payoff in the long run, they should have just backed Wilder and said, here's another 3 years. What you did in the last 2 years has changed the changed the recent history of the club. And like we're committed to allowing you another 2 years to right the ship and get us back.
Yeah.
But with their squad, they shouldn't have been in the Premier League anyway. That was all on the back of his tactical genius.
A mid-table championship team.
Yeah. If Dave McGoldrick is your top scorer, as much as I absolutely love Dave, with 7 goals, that's where your problems start. But
says it all.
Let's call it a day.
We'll call it a day for today. Yeah.
Pop this up on YouTube. Thank you so much to everybody who's liked the page on Instagram, who follows us on Instagram and Twitter. Give us lots of feedback. Anything you'd want us to talk about. Anything you don't agree with. And yeah, I think we'll dedicate this podcast to the mothers just after Mother's Day.
Definitely be, yeah.
100%. Dropping me in hummus. I'm living for the last 3 months, living like a Moroccan prince here. But yeah, thank you, Mr. Lunchtime, for your insight.
Thanks very much, Biggie.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, Sinead, I shall visit you now.